of a famous Nzema warrior, Johnny Kone. They chased a so he made this man, the Bantaman, to chase him, and he went with the assistance of a famous Nzema warrior, Johnny Kone. They chased a Brumuro and then were able to apprehend him. And as you know what will happen after a heavy fight, he was beheaded. Unfortunately for the Asante, his own mother was killed before the war could end. His mother was called Nyaku Kwesi Amwa. She was killed. And then his auntie, who had then been taken to Wasa, was able to be rescued and brought to Kumasi. And so after the Achim and this Ebrumuro incident had completely ended, the Asante now received the royal women who survived, including his auntie called Akuya Krukru. So led by Akuya Krukru, the Asante now gave a new appellation, a new name to the survivors, that Modia Mutiye, Mufriye, and hence the name Afriye.
So in a similar way that we say Yamamu Flimu, when you go through a difficult stage, or maybe you're involved in an accident but you came out safe.
So that is Afrimu. The way Afriye, because you are lucky. You know, my own mother has been killed, but you are lucky. So it means that you have a great fortune. So that became the name of the royal women from Menshia, that they are all fortunate. To come from Menshia is to be fortunate. Mufriye. So that's their name.
Interesting. And your hima bia was Asante Mayamu bia and then almost with me.
Ontias say Nidin no ne Valentine's Day. We say Nidin and a free year. A din kasiye. Omukutedin no mu nim say a din opoku wariye e de ma wo ti say we ye hima e Asante Mayamu. Omu free mention in the decan, no more canoe so at Twasso, Mudini a free year.
Interesting. I have a niece, a queer free year, born to my younger sister, Equia Adiza, who's a nurse in London. Now, I want to look at certain aspects of Ashanti culture that make it so outstanding wherever you go in the world. Because I've noticed in recent times that the way Ashantis even have their funerals, the way Ashantis have our naming ceremonies, and the way Ashantis have our marriages are becoming what is imitated by other tribes. What is it about Ashanti culture that makes it so outstanding?
Well, the reason why Ashanti culture is outstanding, I believe, is the fact that it is built primarily on at least 3 different cultures. The first one is that, see, before Ashanti became Ashanti, they were serving the Denchira people. And Denchira was the preeminent among all the Akan tribes. Ahinia Usian Denchira in those days. And Osei too served under Denchira. That's why the Denchiras have a saying that Kotokosum Amponsim. But in order not to offend the Asantes, let me also add that the Asantes also blow a trumpet indicating intime wunkaife yase. Intime wunkaife yase. Please, we don't want to go there.
Exactly.
But Asantes easily understand that they serve the dangerous and learned a lot from them. They also accept that Komfanochi came and became more or less a chief advisor, special advisor.
All the way from Akwam.
From Akwapim, that is his background. That's his background is Akwapim. And you know that the Akwapim language, the Akwapim culture is so ideal even when it comes to worship. You know that even when pastors are preaching and it is in the Akwapim language, or when our elders are pouring libation and it is in the Akwapim language, we believe that the gods, and indeed the supreme God, hear it more, faster, quicker, and the answers come faster. So when it comes to worship, adoration, we go to Akwapim. And that was the background of Komfanochi. And then at that time, the Akwamus were ruling the aquapims.
Okay.
So part of aquapim culture was also aquamu culture, especially when it comes to warfare. Everybody knows that in those days, the aquamu people among the Akans stood out. So all this together built Ashanti. So it made Ashanti culture enviable. Or say, Tutu and Komfo Anokye bringing rich embodiment of the culture from Denchira, from Akwamu, and from Akwapim. And that is why other people too would feel important if they learn and then copy them. There would be nothing wrong about that.
What would you say makes people want to associate with the Ashanti or dissociate from them?
As for the dissociation, you see, it's natural. Whenever you become so great, so big, you at the same time get a lot of enemies. All because the more you go up, the prouder you become. And when you become proud, naturally you make a lot of enemies. So if people don't like Ashantes, well, I would say that they don't learn anybody's language. People learn their language. When you want to talk about the Asantes, they are the only ethnic group in Ghana, if not the whole of Africa, that come under only one leader. You know, even in the country, you know that all the other regions are made up of so many ethnic groups. Go to Central region, we have Asantes along the coast. And even along the coast, we also have the Efutu, Ewutu people and the Senya people. Then in the interior, we have Asen, we have Denchira, we have Agona. Go to Western region, we have the Nzema, we have the Hanta, Wasa. Everywhere you go, you will not find one ethnic group in one region. In the case of Ashanti, Ashanti, which is almost the biggest region in Ghana, is populated by only Ashantis. And I mean, that is their region. There is nobody who is in Ashanti region who is not an Ashanti. I can talk about West settlers, Fanti migrants, whatever. That's not what I mean. I mean that traditionally, every chief there is an Ashanti chief. That is number one. The Ashantis also occupy the entire Ahafo region. And the Ashantis also occupy part of Eastern region, New Jabin, and then Kwau. Kwau is Ashanti. So naturally, they are more than everybody, and you are forced to learn from such people, and their culture also go very far, especially the women. Today we say we are talking about women. The women's.
I want to come to that in a minute. Some of the distinguishing things of the Ashanti is a hairstyle we call dancing crane. Dancing crane, this hairstyle where they cut the edges round as though they put a calabash on your head and shave all the edges of it. And the women wear that too. Where is it from? And what is its relevance in Ashanti culture?
That's a very big question. Extremely big.
Dancing, that's right.
Extremely big. You see that the Ashanti...
That's the way F in my wig, yeah. You're going to Tofi India, BC, a pampas you.
Insanity. You see, one significant thing is that they don't wear earrings. You see, their body is adorned with jewels, gold, but no earrings. It is even in the Bible. You see, when the Jews were leaving Egypt, they had learned the African culture. Egypt is African. They are going to learn the African culture that a royal is not supposed to wear earrings. Earrings become the identification for slaves.
You're marked by your owner.
So because the most conspicuous one for the girls in the royal house is the one that is a royal, no earring. The one that has slave ancestry will have to wear earrings. So that then is from ancient Egypt. And then you will know it more than some of us, that they are queens, Nefertiti and others, were not having long hair, short hair all the time. So that is the origin. We came from the north to where we are, and the Asantes have preserved that. But when it comes to the name Desecration, the beauty of it is that whereas the Ashanti royal women only felt it was a natural hairstyle, and when something is natural, it doesn't really need a name because we know it. The Fante people, who messed with the Asantes because of trading, the Asantes would carry all their goods to the coast to sell. And then the Fantes, being middlemen between the Asantes and the European traders, would also sell to the Asantes European goods. Then somewhere along the line, they discovered that so many Asantes migrated because of the trading to live in Cape Coast and other Fante areas. And whenever it was an occasion for a funeral, child naming ceremony, or festivals, whatever, the Asantes were unique. They would also do the Desecration hairstyle. And then the Fante women wanted to copy them.
But the Fantes also had theirs, because they had this wig, the tekua.
That is a wig.
Yeah.
It is artificial.
So that one is not natural.
Natural.
Fantastic.
But this one, the Fantes copied from the Asantes. And whenever they wanted to enter the crowd, the dancing ground, to dance, they would rather identify themselves by putting a red flag or a red band on their head. So whenever anybody did that, they say you are copying the Asantes by wearing the dancing crown. Wearing the dancing crown. And my research brought out something I love very much.
Dancing crown.
Dancing crown.
I don't know where dancing crown.
Dancing crown.
Oh my God. Ghana
dancing crown. Yes, dancing crown. And there's a beauty in it. You see, look at this beauty.
I was really thinking, say, if you're working in dancing crown.
Dance. You see, listen to the beauty associated with it. The thing originated from Ashanti, going to Fante land, and Fantes naming it, not giving it a Fante name or a Chi name, but rather an English name. So you see a fusion of three cultures here, that the Fante people, based on their association with the English, have become anglicized more or less. So they give a name that will be compiled and then will be able to be pronounced by them easily.
I'm sure there's a dancing crown.
There's a dancing crown, dancing crown. You understand? So it is a name built on three cultures. That beautiful thing. Ashanti, Fante, English.
So the next time I see somebody wearing their hair like that, the name is really English.
Dancing crown, and it's English. So that is also a way of bringing the Fante and the Ashanti culture together. And it shows that beauty of relationship. Because most often than not, when you talk of Ashanti, then it's warfare. Every Ashanti association with the coastal tribes especially was warfare. Even with the other Akan groups, warfare. But this singular one is just about beauty, championed by women. Because women stand for friendship, for fertility, unity, and is symbolized in something Ashanti women do, named by Fantes, but the name borrowed from England.
So for those ladies who want to wear their hair in a way where they don't have to go, wear the hair of people who had whatever is on top of their skulls shaved for sacrifices and sold to you, maybe it's time for you to try dancing crown. We'll be right back, and we'll be talking about more about the culture of the Akan and the history of our beloved motherland Ghana on Beyond Master of the Game with lawyer, historian, Chief Anokye Frimpong right after this. Hello, hardworking traders of Ghana. I've got terrific news for you. If you have goods to sell in a store, shop, market, or online, call beautiful Betty or handsome Kojo Asari on 0245-929-220. That's 0245-929-220, and we will help you sell faster to more customers. Customer. See and hear the adverts on CTV, Ghana's #1, and buy at good prices. CTV and all our radio networks across Ghana is helping.
A petition, that was when some of them were gunned down, and then it sparked a whole trouble, demonstration, tumultuous one everywhere in the country.
It's important to note that they were gunned down not by the colonial master, but by some of our own, on the instruction of the colonial masters.
Then it becomes an opportunity to explain this. When Imre, the head of security at the castle, instructed the black policemen with him to shoot their own, they refused, and it was the white policemen who shot Sergeant Ajete, Atipo, and then Odate Lamte for the first time in history. Yes, our people were smart enough, sensitive enough. The blacks refused to take the instruction, and people were still marching on. So it was the white policemen who shot, not their own. Not never. And the word is never. That's what the record shows. But the sad thing is that these very illuminating aspects of our history are always swept under the carpet. And then we talk about unnecessary things. See, the black man has always been sensible. He has also always loved his brother. Wherever he shows hatred, in isolated cases where he shows hatred, that one is even made more pronounced. And something like that is so important. We cover. So I'm happy that you brought in this. It was the whites who shot our people, and that was what angered us most. And that was the reason why there was no bloodshed over there. Because if it was our own policemen who had shot the others, there would have been a return of fire. But it was the white people, and they were armed to the teeth. So there was nothing our people could do than to march to other parts of the city and cause destruction to colonial shops and offices, and it reverberated everywhere in the country, leading to the setting up of the Watson Commission that recommended the setting up of an immediate independent commission, and that was the Kumasi Constitutional Commission. And then we had our independent.
I must add here that there are many who would dispute this record as you stated, but maybe that's the more reason why more of our own should write, because whoever writes history glorifies his own.
That one is because the Jamaicans have a definition of history which I like very much. They say history is made up of two words: his story. His story. You know, so somebody tells you something according to his own story, but your story cannot obliterate the true history. The true history was that it was not an African that shot other Africans on that day, 28 February 1940. It was white people who opened fire on our own men. Yeah, and Nkrumah declared that place as Akuyem,
a hallowed ground.
A very hallowed ground, a very holy and sanctified ground, a ground that led us to our independence. You know, so with that, and we should also go a bit deep to let people know that even though immediately after the whole disturbance, you know, the security agencies picked leaders of the UGCC, and later on a newspaper captured it as Big 6 leaders of UGCC arrested. In reality,
that was a fictitious headline.
Yeah, a fictitious headline. In reality, the ex-servicemen were persuaded by Kwame Nkrumah to go and make a demand. He was the general secretary of the UGCC, who had just come in from Europe, Britain, and he met some of them with his friend Akonje at the Jamestown beach. Many of them haven't returned from the war, Second World War, found their marriages broken down. Their wives, some have died, their parents have died, some have committed adultery, giving birth behind, because they thought that they had died. In those days, we didn't have mobile phone to be able to communicate with your husband to tell you that he was still alive. Some had been wounded, and they were not paid ex gratia. And in the evening, as outcasts, they would go and meet at the beach, drink, cry. And Nkrumah saw it, being a socialist, that always he needed the masses, common people, as a tool for making history. So he organized them, told them that on such and such a day, go with your petition to the governor. And then when I was coming from Britain with Akonje, we saw that the white people had been paid. So you too, you will be paid, and insist on seeing the governor. That aspect, insist on seeing the governor, would amount to sedition. You know, it was like a coup d'etat. Nowhere in the world would the palace or the presidential seat be a place that anybody could enter. Naturally, somebody will meet you at the gate and take your message there. Not that all of you, hundreds of you, that means you are going to remove the government by force. But Nkrumah wanted to use it as a platform to win our independence. Because when he came, he said it was going so slow. So he and his friend Nikwabena Boni organized a boycott, and it was successful. After a few months, the boycott had gone down. Boycott of European goods.
The boycott of European goods.
Yeah, had gone down. So
because
what next?
European goods were too expensive.
Expensive. Now they had decided to reduce their prices. So what again? Nkrumah wanted any means possible, but less violence, to be able to give us independence, but not what the UGCC wanted, because he said self-government now, and he wanted it to be now. So he pushed those people to go. In fact, that letter, the petition, it was somebody who stooped, and then the letter was written on his back. It was Nkrumah who wrote it, dictated by Akonje, the lawyer, before it was typed. So immediately they started the investigation. The original one was Nkrumah's handwriting. So it was easy to identify it as the handiwork of the UGCC, because he was their general secretary. And so after everything, when we had our independence, Nkrumah knew that when they arrested him and when certain people had been killed, he could have been proved guilty and also killed. And he knew he would be killed. He knew it, that if people are killed, they'll also die. And that's why Nkrumah becomes different from other people. It wasn't that he was pushing them just to go and die. He was pushing them to go and sacrifice their blood, their lives. He was also ready to sacrifice his lives. That was why the other five, including his own friend, and the coup maker, Akonje, who had planned it with him, when it got to the stage that they were asking, were you part and active participant of what happened? He said no. For the so-called big six, for others, they were genuinely independent.
They were not part of anything at all.
They were not part of it, yeah. I wanted to say they were innocent. They were genuinely innocent. But Akonje knew something about it, but he was afraid. And Nkrumah took everything upon himself, that he was the one who engineered the whole process. And then the whole nation, right from that moment, when they discovered that the other five had been released, and he alone was sent to Kumasi first, and thousands of Ashanti people were ready to receive him in Kumasi, the white people quickly whisked him to Tamale. You understand? So the whole nation started asking, who is this man? Who is this man? And that's Kwame Nkrumah. So even before the formation of the of the CPP, Nkrumah had become the de facto leader of the country. Nobody would mention J.B. Dankwa wearing his suit, comfortably sitting in Accra or South Pond or Second D. But Kwame Nkrumah in the north. And when they released him eventually, and he was coming, initially he was wearing a white top. Nkrumah loved wearing white. He was wearing a white top. And it has soiled after some months in prison. A villager called him, begged the prison officers that the man's clothes is soiled, so let me give him a smock to wear. And Nkrumah wore it back to Accra, kept it. And that was 1948. He kept it until 1957.
6th March.
6th March, he brought back that priceless cloth. And so that is he remembered his own Akuyem and remembered where the mighty had fallen, that because of him, Sergeant Ajete, Odate Lamte, and Atipo had fallen. So that place would have to be earmarked as a center of attraction, a very grave and solemn place that anytime we assemble people there to be sworn in as president, those guys there will be remembered. So we have the cenotaph there, we have the arch, as you rightly mentioned, and then Blaster Square, all near the Osu crossroads.
So every time we go there, we must at least observe a
That is why
moment of
we are
silence.
learning this today.
A moment of silence every time.
That is why we are learning this today. Yeah. So it's not that the place was just randomly selected as any part of Accra. No. It was just specifically and solemnly selected. Yes.
So here was a man who loved culture, who remembered his culture, and remembered those who made a sacrifice with their very lives for Ghana. On the other hand, let's look at those who really desecrated the culture of Ghana, be they politician, electrician, mortician, or just any commoner. At what point was Ghana culture really desecrated, brought to its lowest ebb?
Yes, it's a very sad day, if I remember, when in the aftermath of the 24th February infamous coup d'etat against Nkrumah, and he was forced to sojourn and live in Conakry, Guinea. One of his attendants, by name Mr. Boy Moses, decided to come back home to Ghana. At the airport, he was identified as somebody coming from Guinea. So if a Ghanaian at that time was coming from Guinea, then necessarily he was an Nkrumah person. And indeed, when Nkrumah was the president, he was working at the Flagstaff House. And so it was easy to note such a person. Well, instead of sending this man to maybe the police headquarters for questioning or anything, what they did was that right at the airport, they stripped the man naked.
What?
They stripped a human being naked.
At the airport?
At the airport, and then put him in a cage. Put him in a cage, locked it.
Who did this?
It was the National Liberation Council, led by, then the head of state was General J.A. Ankara, and his two lieutenants, General Kotoka, and then Brigadier A.A. Afrifa, because he was coming from Guinea. A Ghanaian coming from Guinea was an associate of Nkrumah.
Why would they even get a cage to do this?
A cage?
Where?
Where would you get a cage?
Why would you get a cage at
It's
the
like
airport?
asking me, where would you get water to drink? A cage is a cage. They'll say, Sophie, Guinea na eba meboa. And you say, Kwame Nkrumah Nkrofo, the on train you be. In a minute, you can make a cage. What is making a cage? It's making the cage as difficult as building a car. So they made a cage for him, put him in it, and then drove him in the principal streets of Accra, a human being, naked. And then the whole world condemned it. The whole world condemned it. And then this one too was condemned. Yeah.
This country of ours.
This one too. The coup, that abortive coup, the Atta Yeboah coup, it failed, so we call it an abortive coup. When they were pronounced guilty, the execution was also made broad daylight, and we know that the British government condemned it. These are some areas
it's
that went so
interesting to
low.
hear things like the British government condemned it.
Yeah, the person is wrong.
When Europeans in the United States of America were actually lynching men, hanging them on trees, and they were standing there with their children in photographs, laughing.
And
How
then they
hypocritical
move
of the
on.
world.
They move on to see that what we did was bad. And if it is bad, we tell ourselves not to repeat it. And we tell other people too, don't repeat it. Yes, because the man will be executed all right. You do it late in the night or sometimes in the prison. Sometimes even his family members could be invited to observe. A pastor will be there to pray for them if they want it. But to make it broad daylight that anybody who wants to see it, no, it's not a right. It's like anytime we see the photographs of Nkrumah, Afrifa, Frimpong, Rollins, all of them on television, they are photographs when they were alive, you know, in happy or mourning stages. Not a photograph when the person was on his deathbed, no, written in hospital, no. Or not when a person, like say if it is Afrifa or Frimpong, Kotoka, you see there, when they had shot him and he was in blood. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. Culture frowns upon things like that. Yes. Even in those days, when people were executed, they were executed in secrecy. In secrecy, nobody would know when and how those things were done. It's part of our culture.
But I must say, another lowest ebb in Ghana was the time when women traders in Kumasi were stripped naked and lashed in public in Kumasi.
Not only in Kumasi, even in Accra. But we easily forget things. That was during the AFRC, Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, and then the early days of the Provisional National Defense Council. And at that time, you and I were a bit old because 1979 I was 15 years. So I observed, I mean, you can't tell me you were 15 and you don't see things. 15, I was in Form 4, elementary school Form 4. Those of us who are not privileged enough like you to go to preparatory schools. And I saw everything. You know, when the announcement of the coup was being made, I was there. I was near my father's radio set, and when people were being lashed in public in Kumasi, I witnessed a lot.
But through all this, what is most curious is that the people of Ghana scream their support, laugh, and hail the perpetrators of evil when these things are being done to their own. Why?
Why? There's something called mass psychology. You know, when people meet huge in a crowd, their behavior is different from when they stand as individuals. As individuals, everybody would have seen Zacchaeus as a very prominent person. Then he was a tax collector. In today's world, you have been a very famous accountant or a finance officer.
Or a boss of GRA.
Yes, but coming together, they only saw that he was short, diminutive, and a cheat. So that's the way it happens everywhere. And this man, Adolf Hitler, always realized that. He said, whenever you are speaking to the crowd, say anything to them, even if you want them to take poison and die, they will do it. That's why in Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, pastors are able to persuade the congregants, take this, you will go to heaven, and they will do. As individuals, they will not do. So when as soldiers, group, Afrifa told them that Kwame Nkrumah has run away from the country because he knows that some people are going to attack the nation. And as we are talking, they are already in Accra. We have to go and stop that. If he had spoken to individual soldiers, it would have been difficult to get that. But once they were about 1,000 men, in fact, he brought in 600 from Tamil, about 600 men, they will not think as individuals. They'll quickly follow him.
It's just the mob mentality.
That's the way it is. So let's go and save our country without thinking twice. The same thing happened, Julius Caesar's death. You know, people were so happy that Julius Caesar had died. And even when they met somebody, a poet, you know, I mean, after Caesar had been killed, they realized they had done the wrong thing. The mob going around, rampaging. When they met an innocent man called Cinna, who was not one of the conspirators, and instead of leaving him to go, say, tear him for his bad verses, they killed him. So when people come together, that's what they do. Then when they go back home, they realize they have made a great mistake. When Kwame Nkrumah wanted to name Accra International Airport after Yasantua, the Asantes chiefs had met to take a decision on it. Mateme Hofo, Bonko Kanche Kwame Nkrumah said, Ompe CPP ni baby, non fe din infantuno. Because it was a crowd, large crowd of chiefs, so they rejected it.
But as now it is named after a
yes,
maker.
And they don't want to remember it. Do you also know that when the company called G was building Anokye Teaching Hospital, the Asantes were resisting it on their land. Yes. And it was just about 1/4 of Nkrumah's project. The whole project was that Kumasi was going to be the first city in Ghana to have 2 universities. Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, sitting somewhere at Ayeduase and Kote. And then Kumasi Central Medical University, encompassing state-of-the-art hospital and then a medical university. The Asantes resisted it at that time. And records say that when the G company was building the hospital, 24 hours a day, there was heavy security. Somebody who wants to develop your land for you, to build a first-class hospital for you, then mightier than KkD Teaching Hospital, you resist it. Why? Yes, Kwame Nkrumah. Because you need answer. You have no baby hospital there. Am I? Yes.
Now the hospital never brought me yare.
No. Once it is a crowd, we are at the moment we are dealing with mass psychology.
Yeah.
You know, when Nkrumah was overthrown, they called him names. You understand? And so sad, they even brought his clothes and shoes from Flaster House, brought everything and sold to auction to commoners, a truck pusher. Yes, and people were so happy. People were so happy. And then a few days later, they asked them, the regret comes so late.
The story of the farmer who would throw sticks at the animals stealing his corn, his plantain, and his bananas. And the animals would be angry that the farmer was throwing sticks at them. And when the farmer died, they all rejoiced. And the next year, there were no plants for them to steal.
Yes.
That is when they realized that
the harm they caused to themselves.
Animals are animals. That's why they don't call them human beings. And too many times, even we human beings act like the lowest animals.
Yeah, like the Rollins one you are talking about. People, and you know, when his government was spilling blood, you know, university students at that time let the blood flow.
And you know what?
Because Amedome was not your father, because a champion was not your father, because Boache or Kote wasn't your father.
As an example, my father is 86 now. He suffered at the hands of the Rawlings regime. His Mercedes-Benz was used for collecting rubbish in Tema. He was imprisoned at Gunda Barracks with Kroboedu Sayo Kuchri Bakoin, the head of National Lotteries, Nipo Bitatechu, and others. Their food was put in a head pan that is used for carrying concrete. That is what their food was put in for them to share. And I looked at it and I thought, as a kid in Presec, I thought, what did they get out of it? This is a man who doesn't work for government, who works hard with his wife, sometimes 16 hours a day, to be able to provide not just for his wife and children, but for members of his family from Adansi and for members of his family from northern Ghana.
And then also the businessmen who were stripped naked and given whips in their belly. Yeah, you forget that there were those who had created jobs, because they had opened shops and factories, Siao and others. So the moment you treat them that way, next time you are in the street, you don't have any work to do. But at the time they were auctioning their goods, you were so happy, because you think that you will become like him. You won't become like him.
Never.
You will become worse.
Never. This nation of ours, we speak of our history that we may learn of it so we don't repeat it. And that is why we are seated here today talking. More to come when we come back about the history of Ghana, the history of its people, and what we must know and learn and remember so we may not repeat it. Right after this.
This Friday, 14th February, is Ghana's National Chocolate Day and Valentine's Day. Enjoyment be it. Send your love to your beloved via the Valentine's Special on CTV, Ghana's #1. It's the finest thoughts and sentiments presented with delicious chocolates and compliments, music, laugh, talk, and style with special guest Shami Kwame, aka Rap Doctor, and his beloved wife Anika, and actor Ajetanan, aka Pusha, with his devoted wife Alum. Plus,
we want you to share what is in you one day every week on this TV station. Hey,
thank you.
One day every week, hey.
Yeah, but share.
I do over Sunday.
Sunday,
so Monday to Friday, we court.
Aha, and to say yeah. Remember that's your book is the.
Now, how do you memorize all these things? I know you're writing your books, but how do they all stick in your head? How do you do it?
I believe, first of all, you give glory to God in everything, because the African is religious. So let me end it there. Glory to God.
There's one thing that bothers me. In Africa, why is it that every time we have an election, there is violence? And every time there is a change of government, there is violence. And every time people are going out of power, we find there's been thievery. And then when some people get into power by force, they feel a need to kill people. Why?
To start from the last, when you get to power by force, as you rightly said, force, you perpetrated violence in order to get there. So you feel very exposed. And therefore, you have to find a way of protecting yourself. And because it was not the people who put you there, you have to scare the people away, because you are not there by their choice. And that is why every coup maker, every junta, call it as you want it, would find everything possible, do everything possible to protect itself. That's the way it is.
Is it also because people do not recognize that if nobody kills you, you will still die your own natural death?
Yeah, it is better to die a natural death than somebody killing you. And because he knows that he has killed others, he has to protect himself until the natural one comes in. And then also, unlike in Europe and then America, for us here, our constitution and then the whole part of the culture has been such that when you are up there, you are so much revered, as if you are different from other human beings. Because when you go out there, when I say out there, Europe and America, they've been able to give a better, and when I say a better definition of who is a leader, so that church pastors are leaders, chiefs are leaders, heads of families are leaders, media men. So wherever you are, once you get to the top, you teach, people learn from you, directly or indirectly. You are a leader. Businessmen are leaders. Elon Musk is a leader. Everybody is a leader, provided you shine where you are. In our case, we made the mistake of seeing only one person as the leader. That is the president or the chief. And so therefore, around this man is always violence. And when he gets there too, he is able to dish out positions so that nobody's will become somebody's. Whereas when you go to Europe, when you are made a minister, you live in your own house where you were living before you became a minister. MP, where you were living before you became an MP. You have lived in Britain for a very long time. Apart from the Queen and then the Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, you understand, who again lives at number 10 Downing Street and number 9 Downing Street? Nobody. They don't have an estate for such people. You come from wherever you live to that place. In our case, immediately you are made a member of parliament. We know it, brand new Land Cruiser for you. You understand where the money is coming from. We don't care. A member of the council will say brand new Land Cruiser, and every month you are going to be fully paid Many of them even don't pay tax.
I have a
and then when you are going ex gratia.
You just mentioned Council of State.
Council of State. When you are going ex gratia, who will not want to be there?
I have read the act in the Constitution for so long, and I think, do we really need a Council of State when you have a construct where the Constitution states categorically that they are like an advisory council to the president? However, the president is not obliged to take their advice. So why do you still need them?
I will start by saying that the reason why we set up a constitutional review committee is one of things like this. You know, a council of state, when in fact they are not advising the state, but advising one man who at the time of campaigning told the whole nation that this is my manifesto, a very thought of manifesto. And then after having been elected, he has got a cabinet to work with. And then beyond the cabinet, if it is Minister for Energy, at VRA and ECG, GMPC, there are people there, technocrats, people holding master's degree, first degree, second degree, third degrees, whatever, experts, engineers, you know, who can do anything under the sun, so that 24 hours Ghana will continue to have electricity. So why the need for somebody calling himself a member of a council of state? The president has got it all. So it is just a job for the boys. And then so sad when we don't have jobs for young people who have come out of the universities. These people are largely pensioners. A retired IGP, retired Chief of Defense Staff, retired, Chief Justice.
People who should be playing with their grandchildren. And then the businessmen who are elected there, as you've seen, damn rich people who are able to bribe others to vote for them to go there, who really don't need money. We go and pamper them over there. And then young virile men who are able-bodied and need to work. Put all this money together, create one enterprise for them, and you will see productivity. And when one sensible one in the lot one day said, listen, this money you're paying me for Council of State, I don't know why I should be taking it. It is an honor to even be called a member of the Council of State, so I will not take the money. Some fool in the media goes on TV and says he shouldn't have said that. Hasn't he taken some?
Not only that, it cost him his job as the president of the National House of Chiefs, because he was being nationalistic. Then you don't need to pay anybody for advising the president if the president needs advice at all. You understand? So that is the way it is. I believe that the Council of State, when they are elected, they go there. They should just go and pass a resolution saying that we don't need to be meeting here. But it's my prayer that the new constitution would ensure there will be no Council of State. But because at the same time we live in the paradox, and the paradox is that when a government is elected, all those that help to bring it to power want jobs directly or indirectly for themselves or other people. And so it becomes easier for whoever will form the government to create more job avenues. And this is a place for them, some of the elderly people in the government, yes, to go and then sit there. So the Council of State is always an appendage of the government. That is all.
So we can only hope that this constitutional review will actually look at our books and change the things that are inimical to the progress of Ghana,
including the Council of State, because I've always spoken against it.
I also worry about this whole ex gratia. If your father worked at the meat marketing board, he relied on his Smith contributions and relied on his pension. So if somebody else's father worked at the presidency in a position beneath his level at the meat marketing board, or worked in parliament where he was paid a salary and had the power to create the network that will help increase his net worth, why do we pay them another pack of money at the end of every 4 years?
Luckily for us, the president, Mahama, has told the whole nation that one of the very first things he will scrap will be the ex gratia. because it's completely nonsensical, completely nonsensical. Yes.
Are there Ghanaians who still support it?
I don't
only
think
those who
any
benefit
good person
from it?
would support it. I don't think any good person will support it. Even those who benefit from it know that it's never a good thing. You understand? So how come that, let's say, a retired Chief Justice, judges retire on their salary?
Yeah, on the highest, some of the higher ones retire on their highest salary.
Then you also go and pay him ex gratia. He would take it all right, but he sees that doesn't help. It's like the free education, the so-called free secondary education that we have now. You see, there are those who genuinely need it, those whose parents are poor, or those whose parents are really needy. You understand? They are what's needed, because everybody needs to be educated. But mention somebody like Mr. Kennedy Ejapon, whom I like so much. I've mentioned his name because he's about the only person in Ghana who comes out to say that Sikadiami will be power. So if this man says Sikadiami will be power, and this same man, his child goes to school free of charge, Kennedy knows that it is completely bad. But his child must enjoy it, because every Ghanaian child is enjoying it. And those of us, even you and I, whose children attended preparatory schools, where they paid, or we paid 6,000 cedis a month, 10,000 cedis, a term. What shows that when our children go to secondary school, where the fee is less than 2,000, we cannot afford. But the state says it should be free. And I want a government that will come, that will separate those whose parents can afford it and compel them to pay, and those who really cannot afford, and then we give it as a scholarship to them, so that eventually the two will become one.
The resources of state are for all of us. Some say if you start saying you're going to divide along the lines of those who can afford and those who cannot afford, then you're going to have to use the taxes to determine. But the tax net in Ghana is so small that many people are doing good business, making money, but not paying taxes.
Those who come from that angle are making a mistake. Let me tell you a simple way of earmarking those who should not pay fees. Now, everybody is running away from the government or public schools called Saito.
Yep.
Do you know that the fee there is less than 100 Ghana cedis, and people are not able to afford? So anyone who sits the BECE from Saito, automatically free education.
Simple.
It's very simple. And then GES has a record of every private school in Ghana. That is why we are able to register their products for BECE. True. So the only thing is that you make the headmasters fill in the fee paid every term. And if the fee is more than the government fee in the secondary school, senior secondary school, it means that the parent can afford to continue to pay.
There will be those who also say that, listen, some cannot afford to pay but can afford to drink and smoke and womanize. Some cannot afford to pay because they are buying eyelashes and wigs and putting their kids in the worst possible schools. And I can give you this example from England.
That doesn't matter. Once the child is from that angle, listen.
But some also force and pay because they live on a very tight budget, so they can provide their kids with a good
because
school.
They understand education, so they must be helped to continue to pay. Look, in Nkrumah's days, when we had something called Northerners Award, we had so many Northerners who were richer than Southerners, like Bawumia's father. You understand? He was a minister, Mumuni Bawumia, like Mohammed's father. He was a minister under Kwame Nkrumah.
Oh, but politicians are.
But because it was Northerners Award, Mahama went to school free. Bawumia went to school free, just as all the Northerners, their children, they went to school free. And my father, in the army, the highest level he went was warrant officer, a very poor Ashanti man. All of us went to school paying fees because the benefit did not descend to Southerners. So when we say all those who go to Saito should have free education, whether your father is Bill Gates or not, once he sends you there, it means that you are within that bracket. And then you go to school free. No matter how evil it is, it helps to catch those who are capable of paying the fees. Those capable of paying the fees are those who might be poor, but are so sensitive when it comes to education, want the best education for their children, such that they put them in expensive preparatory schools. They should continue because they are sensitive. Then those who
not only are they sensitive, they are sensible.
Then those who don't have it at all, and then those two
who have it but who are wasteful.
Very good. All this, when their children deserve to have it free. If their children are supposed to pay based on the background of the parent, they should pay.
We can't all have it free. Some people must pay.
That is as simple as that.
And when we come back, we'll be talking about why a particular person was the only one who participated in the 1966 coup who was gunned down in cold blood in Ghana. Right after this. About a coup in Ghana which led to the killing of men, something which I personally frown on, but which some people say is a necessity, because when people are so corrupt that they are just incorrigible, putting them in a jail and then paying taxes to look after them there is a waste of national resources. But in this particular coup d'etat, when they were selecting people to execute, there was one person who was very peculiar. He's the only member of the people who staged the coup of 1966. Brigadier Anokye Frimpong. Why was he the only one selected?
Yeah. But before I answer, let me do some form of correction. Because the perception that the generals who were executed in the aftermath of the 1979 AFRC coup d'etat were actually not corrupt. You know, the young guy among them, who was less than 36 years, Feli, Colonel Roger Feli, he was said to have taken a loan from the bank, about 50,000 cedis those days, to build a house. And you know the meaning of a loan. You know, it is contractual and
you
it is
borrowing
to be paid
to pay back with interest.
And it's not government money. It is a certain bank's money. And then somebody like Kote, somebody like Yawbuache, Medome, you understand, a champion, a Frifa. You know, why were they killed? The other one, I shouldn't forget, Utuka. Why were they killed? Many of them were Akans. It was like they had targeted them already. They had just targeted them already. A champion, arguably, is Ghana's finest head of state after Kwame Nkrumah. If you take those who have developed the country in 6 years, what the man did for this country is completely unimaginable.
What I remember most of him is Operation
Feed Yourself. That made Ghana to export food the first time. Mind you, he was the one who brought the Yentia policy. All the loans have come to me, I won't pay. So they stopped giving him loans. And he went to agriculture. And Ghana started developing. Look at the Pong Dam. Look at the Weja Dam. You understand? Don't let us go deeply there. They were not corrupt. Now let me answer your question. And let me add that a young man like Feli would be killed. Because when so many of them were Akans, and they weren't Northerners, let us get a Northerner to balance the equation. You understand? So you kill somebody's son. Then there were no heirs. And that handsome, oh Jesus Christ. When we were young in elementary schools, we had the commissioners, their pictures in every classroom. And you saw him as a naval officer, always wearing white with that bespectacled man. Extremely handsome, unimaginably
Same
handsome.
advice from Mr. Boachi.
Yeah,
very handsome. And I knew him personally, I know his children.
You understand? And you said that because there were no heirs, let's bring an heir man for a balance. But
who said so?
It was the junta, AFRC, and the leader was an heir man. Why didn't he add himself to the group that was going to be killed? But don't let us go too deep there. Let me answer your question.
So it was tribalistic.
I don't even want to say tribalistic. It was inhuman. And I hope we don't ever go there, because even as we talk, we are offending a lot of people. I hope we don't go there. We move on. We move on. We move on. That's all. Yeah, with your...
Because one of my mates' father was killed.
Let's move on.
I'm still very angry.
No, don't worry. Maybe he's also listening to you. So don't let us open wounds. They are old wounds. Let's try to find a way of...
Yeah, but if we speak not of these, the young ones will not know, and we will repeat history. Our problem is we don't read sufficiently, and we don't listen to elders sufficiently. So we do not know what has even occurred in our own country.
Yes.
So every day we continually repeat them, whether it is a shooting or a killing at a sports stadium, whether it is digging for gold in places that we shouldn't, whether it is poisoning our own waters, whether it is police brutality or military brutality upon the people. Whatever has occurred in this country before, we must tell the story that people will remember. It is the only way we will stop people from repeating them.
Thank you. And I believe that's why we are talking about Afrifa. Yes. Yes, Brigadier General Afrifa was one of the architects of the 1966 coup against Nkrumah. And as you rightly said, he, at the time of the AFRC coup, had already got retired and was even itching to enter parliament as a member for Mampong North constituency. That one, not that I read, I saw it at the age of 15, 17, election. I saw him campaigning. I saw him campaigning in Kumasi. He came to our village, Abofo, to campaign for the UNC parliamentary candidate of Offenso.
If I may interject, isn't it curious that the very people who stage coups later now want to participate in what they consider a democracy?
And that is why my friends who say Rollins was greater than Nkrumah or others, I say no. 1979, you overthrew, 31st December 1981, you overthrew a democratic process. Then after so many years, you realize that, no, there's no way out than to go back. So how do you become a great man? You become a great man if after the 79 coup, you never came back and democracy restored, and it had continued to today, you would have been mentioned more than whatever people say about you today. No, never. If you are talking about great men, please don't try to bring anybody near somebody like Nkrumah, especially somebody who has already overthrew a government.
Whoever is a head of state, elected or unelected, when the people who work beneath you, your ensigns or your soldiers, tie people up and shoot to kill them, who is the killer?
The killer. Put it this way. We say Napoleon was the greatest soldier in history. Was he actually fighting? Whenever there was war, you'll be sitting in the office. Alexander the Great, people will die for you. Putin. Look at the arsenal Russia has got. He doesn't know how to press anything. And they say Putin, Zelensky. So whether we like it or not, we put the blame on the leader, Adolf Hitler, Second World War. It was German soldiers who fought. It was Germans who killed the Jews. But because you are the leader and it happens during your time, not long ago, we were talking about Ashanti history. Opoku was 82, Komfo Anokye. No, once it is during your era that Ashanti fought dangerous, it is your name that is
especially if you sanctioned it.
Well, I'm trying to explain, so that's the way it should go, yeah. But I wish we don't go deep there. And then next time when it is the topic and it is debatable, then we have time so that it doesn't become one-sided. Well, there must be one person here and another person here to be able to exchange ideas. If it is one-sided...
But you and I are not on the same side.
I know. And that's why I wish we have a special day for it.
Now, I want to point this out because I need for people in positions of authority, for people clothed in garments of power, for people clothed with power to understand that if the people who work under their command or people who work with their instructions go and harm people, they, with the authority, have harmed people.
Of course, whether you like it or not, you understand? That's why somebody came to Jesus and said, look, today is the Sabbath. We see your people breaking cones, your followers. Stop them. Because if they are breaking the Sabbath, it is attributed to you. And when your people are making noise, they will come to you and tell your people to shut up. So always the blame goes to the leader. So just as
I want to ask
the glory also goes to him.
Now we know that Ghana didn't have that much money, but we were able to rent an airplane for the president to shower in the sky. If the president didn't know about the hiring of the airplane, but he still got to shower in the sky, and we find only 3 weeks later that Ghana is broke, is that problem still attributed to the president, or is it attributed to his ensigns?
Oh, but who sat on the plane? And who took the shower? I mean, you and I, we travel many times with planes. How many planes have got showers? So if somebody asks for a designer one, then that somebody is to be blamed.
It's the president.
Rawlings never, even though he was a pilot, a world-class pilot, how many times did we hear that he was taking a shower in a plane? So once you do it during your time, and you really did it, then you should, if there is a glory associated with it, we have to put it on you.
But let's come to Afrifa. Yeah. Why was he the only one in the 1966 coup to be selected and shot?
Yeah, there are several reasons for that. The immediate reason was that the man staged the coup to overthrow Nkrumah's government. He staged the coup to overthrow Nkrumah's government. He did it with Kotoka. Kotoka in 1967 had already been killed in an abortive coup, leaving Afrifa. Don't mention General Nkrumah. He never took part in the coup. He was a retired officer. After the coup, for there to be a balance between Kotoka and Afrifa, they brought a different person, a neutral person, to be the head of state. So this man, Nkrumah never took up a gun to fight anybody to stage a coup, no. So these two architects, one had died. Don't forget that Nkrumah had a lot of following, a lot. And even within the army, so many people admired him. And we know that Rawlings admired him a lot. And Boachijan admired him a lot. So that was number one, that after the coup, and as you were trying to recap, they had that aim of killing certain people. So there's no way they will kill the innocent, like Amedomi, Echampon, Ituka, and others, and leave you, who overthrew our master. So that would be the immediate reason. And they felt that that was the only way to settle scores with him. After handing over, you won't get him again. Because Afrifa himself knew he had made a lot of enemies, having overthrown Nkrumah. So leader after leader, he was always writing letters to heads of state.
I remember one letter that he wrote to Echampon.
Then another one, 2 to Echampon or 3 to Echampon, 1 to Ekufo. You know, he was scared. And then I learned from Kwesi Pratt that even wanting to go to parliament, he wanted immunity. He knew that at any time something will happen to him. So he wanted to play politics. This time not for a presidential seat, but to be in parliament to protect himself. So he knew what could happen to him. The second reason for the killing this man,
Afrifa,
executing Afrifa, strictly related to the 66 coup, just as the first one, was that, you see, the 66 coup was actually formulated by the CIA. The CIA does not dispute that. That's why we are saying it openly.
Oh, the records are there. Yeah. The records are in the public libraries in America.
Very good. So, Hale, Deku, and then Kotoka coming from one side. They liked Gbedema, Nkrumah's deputy, de facto deputy, whom he had sacked. So they felt that after the coup, they would have to bring Gbedema to become the leader. Unfortunately, Kotoka was killed And that silenced that idea, and ultimately Buzia became the prime minister. And Buzia was a friend to Afrifa. So let me mention it, the Airways felt that they had been betrayed. They should have gone to Bedema, and possibly Afrifa had a hand in the abortive coup that killed Kotoka. Wow. So they had marked him down.
So this is tribalism.
Yeah, then, well, national tribalism, good. The Afrifa also did tribalism. Then this one, the third one reason was that, during the coup, anti-Nkrumah coup, he went with soldiers to the house of the army commander, General Bauer, and instead of making the other ranks to shoot him, Afrifa himself personally shot him in the very eyes of his wife and children. Yeah, so that one also gave him enemies, and people were seeing, and he was also from the north. So his northern people, many of whom were in the AFRC, would also have to take revenge. Then possibly the last reason, in fact, we have two last reasons. One was that the CIA, according to General Joshua Hamidu, gave money to the coup leaders to give to all the boys.
And
Afrifa alone didn't give out the money. General Kotoka did it, and then this man, Okran, did it. The coup did it, Hale did it. This man alone kept the money. And at the time of the 79 coup, they had become officers, and they also had to take revenge. The last reason was that during...
This was not a conspiracy. It was just a known... This was not a conspiracy. It was...
79 electioneering campaign. Afrifa openly everywhere in the Ashantes region said that Sa Abeno, referring to PNP, if they win, I will stage another coup and overthrow it because it is an Nkrumah party. And he went ahead to say that Sa Abeno yebetu asiye yebeyano nsafufonianom edo akokona eboboni abene de mempese mehunu mo amunim se Ghana kutamisem ti se kosua.
He said this.
Everybody heard this. 79. So when the coup succeeded, the FRC make you to know whether Ghana could have some kosia betrayal. And in his execution too, they proved it. Instead of, and that one was bad,
that was
shooting
really
at the heart straight away. They started from somewhere, and they thought he had juju when he was calling for more bullets. He was just suffering. Yeah.
He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. Really sad. Great history lesson today. Yes. I just told you I was going to ask you 11 questions. And I've asked you, I think, a little more than that, and you have answered them all. Thank you very much. But you have to respond to this for us. My director, Sami Adanu, selects a video at random. We play it, and we take your reaction to it. Let's take a look.
Of Zaire had to place.
Contractual arrangements between Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited and the Ghana Revenue Authority for the stated objective of the enhancement of revenue assurance in the downstream petroleum sector, upstream petroleum production, and minerals and metals resources value chain. 2. Termination of a distribution, loss reduction, and associated network improvement project contract between the Electricity Company of Ghana Limited and Beijing Xiaochen Technology BXC. 3. Procurement of contractors and materials and activities and payments in respect of the National Cathedral project. 4. Activities and payments in respect of a contract awarded by the Ministry of Health, initially commenced by the Ministry for Special Development Initiatives, to Service Ghana Auto Group Limited for purchases and after-sales service and maintenance of 307 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter 305 CDI ambulances for the National Ambulance Service. And 5. Payments out of and utilization of the tax refund account of Ghana Revenue Authority. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the fugitive's name is Kenneth Nanaya Oforiatta. Mr. Oforiatta is 66 years old. He was the Minister of Finance of the Republic between 2017 and 2024. Mr. Oforiatta left the jurisdiction on or around 2 January 2025. On 24 January 2025, the OSP communicated to Mr. Oforiatta that the OSP considered him a suspect in respect of 4 of the cases described above. Mr. Oforiatta was directed to attend in person the OSP on Monday, 10 February 2025 at 10 GMT for interview. By communication dated 31 January 2025, Mr. Oforiatta instructed his lawyers to inform the OSP that he was out of the jurisdiction indefinitely on medical grounds, and that the firm will notify the OSP of his arrival in the country in aid of rescheduling his personal attendance at the OSP. Further, the firm offered its willingness to provide the OSP with any information the OSP may require to aid in the investigation until his arrival in the country. Then on 5 February 2025, the OSP responded to Mr. Oforiatta, copied to his lawyers, that the OSP did not need or require notification from his lawyers of his arrival in the jurisdiction. The OSP acknowledged Mr. Oforiatta's lawyer's gracious offer to provide the OSP with information in aid of the investigation. However, and this is important, the OSP insisted that Mr. Oforiatta's personal attendance at the OSP was required. After all, the lawyers are not under investigation. I don't need lawyers to answer questions on your behalf when you are being investigated. The OSP declined Mr. Oforiatta's request to be away from the jurisdiction indefinitely on medical grounds on his say-so. Consequently, the OSP directed Mr. Oforiatta to indicate by close of business on Monday, 10 February 2025, a reasonable date of his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP. The OSP warned Mr. Oforiatta that if he failed so to do, the OSP would take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP at our own choosing. Subsequently, by a communication dated 10 February 2025, that is just Monday, Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers transmitted to the OSP a generic letter procured by Mr. Oforiatta purporting to be from a doctor in a foreign jurisdiction, stating that Mr. Oforiatta had been seen and evaluated, and that he was undergoing further testing and management and possible surgical intervention at an indicated future time. And further, that his medical condition necessitates that he will stay and follow up on his appointments. On account of this purported medical letter, Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers prayed that the attendance in person of Mr. Oforiatta at the OSP should be fixed, taking into account the medical report from his doctors. And at 4:16 p.m. the very next day, that is yesterday, Tuesday, 11 February 2025, before we could respond to the letter that came on Monday, the OSP received another letter from Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers. This time, it was an inquiry. Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers wanted to know, and they stated that they were informed by the household of Mr. Oforiatta that in the morning of Tuesday, 11 February 2025, that is yesterday, 12 men, comprising 1 police officer, 4 military men, and 7 other men in plain clothing, visited Mr. Oforiatta's house, and that by threat of force, they were able to enter Mr. Oforiatta's house, and they undertook an exercise purporting to be a search of every room, office, gym, and other spaces in the house. Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers then inquired if the OSP could confirm that the actions of the 12 men were the instance of the OSP, so as to enable them to decide if a complaint to the police would be unnecessary. Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers then prayed for a prompt response from the OSP to prevent imposter action. We are now responding promptly, and we have chosen the course of answering Mr. Oforiatta's inquiry publicly at this briefing, considering the circumstances surrounding the purported raid at Mr. Oforiatta's house, media reportage of the purported raid, and in light of the reckoning that some media houses have stated emphatically that the OSP was behind the purported raid, and in light of the reckoning that the purported raid is being made to appear as if it was some untoward action by the OSP stemming from some contrived vendetta held by the OSP against Mr. Ofori-Atta. So, here we go. And this is our response to Mr. Ofori-Atta directly, but through you, the media. Mr. Ofori-Atta, the OSP did not raid your house on Tuesday, 11 February 2025, or on any other day. Mr. Ofori-Atta, the OSP did not cause any persons, however uniformed or bedecked, to raid your house on Tuesday, 11 February 2025, or on any other day. Mr. Ofori-Atta, that could not have been the OSP, and that is not our style. If the OSP enters your premises, you will not be in doubt as to whether it was the OSP that had come there, and your lawyers will not have cause to do an inquiry ascertaining whether it was the OSP. We have our unique methods of conducting searches, and we have uniquely designed insignia identifying ourselves, and not just by a statement that we are from the OSP. This is one such main insignia. A person cannot just show up and say they are from the OSP. It's cheap, anyone can say that. But when the OSP enters your premises, you will definitely know by our insignia, our methods, and the way we identify ourselves that this is the OSP. Our intelligence points us to state that the purported raid on Mr. Ofori-Atta's residence was staged, or at best, an imposter action in an attempt to court disfavor for the OSP and to derail the investigation. You know us very well. The OSP is never deterred by such occurrences, and the investigations will continue as by law prescribed. These occurrences and the OSP's intelligence, which will not be revealed at this time for fear of compromising the investigation, are very instructive as not to put premium on Mr. Ofori-Atta's alleged imminent peril should he travel back to the jurisdiction. In any case, the purported medical letter transmitted through his lawyers to the OSP did not state so or demonstrate so. The OSP is unconvinced that the purported medical letter transmitted by Mr. Ofori-Atta through his lawyers to the OSP represents a medical report to the effect that Mr. Ofori-Atta is incapacitated or is so sickly and invalid to the extent that he is physically unable to return to the jurisdiction without imperiling his life. No serious law enforcement agency, and certainly not the OSP, will be convinced that the purported medical letter stops it from demanding the physical appearance of Mr. Ofori-Atta before it in the described circumstances. We are of the firm conviction here that this is only a ruse employed by Mr. Ofori-Atta in aid of his intention to avoid returning to the jurisdiction and to personally answer questions in respect of the investigations. We are convinced that the real intention of Mr. Ofori-Atta is what was communicated to the OSP in the very first letter transmitted by his lawyers on 31 January 2025. That is, he has left the jurisdiction indefinitely. That was what was communicated to us at the first instance, and that is his intention. He has no intention of willingly returning to the jurisdiction. That much is clear to us. Consequently, ladies and gentlemen of the media, the OSP declares Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta a wanted person. He is a fugitive from justice. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP. And this is to Mr. Ofori-Atta. You have two choices. You can either return to the jurisdiction voluntarily, or the OSP will enforce your return. Another case update. The OSP has also commenced investigation into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of the operations of the Minerals Income Investment Fund, MIF, especially regarding payments made in respect of Ejapa Royalties Limited, Small-Scale Mining Incubation Program, Quarry Value Addition Program, Asante Gold Corporation, Electrochem Ghana Limited, the Lithium Asset, that is Projected Lithium Focused Exploration and Development Corporation, Gold Asset 2, that is Enchi Gold Project, and all other investments by MIF, and funds expended on the chairman of the board of directors, the operational funds of MIF, purchase of parcel of land for intended office building, and all contracts and agreements entered into by MIF, and all publications, especially international publications by MIF. We are withholding the names of those under investigation for now, but it targets 2 former officials and 2 serving officials of the fund. Third, the OSP has also commenced investigation into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of an alleged embezzlement of 1.3 billion cedis from the Unified Petroleum Pricing Fund, UPPF, at the National Petroleum Authority, NPA. The investigation primarily targets the following persons: the coordinator of the UPPF, Mr. Jacob Amwa, NPA staff Frida Tando, NPA staff Wendy Ashon Newman, and the former chief executive of NPA, Mustafa Abdul Hamid. And lastly, it will be recalled that in the last quarter of 2023, the OSP and the Controller and Accountant General's Department jointly commenced corruption risk assessment and investigation into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of government payroll administration. It is also recalled that the assessment and investigation are especially aimed at isolating and removing the names of non-existent, ineligible, and undeserving persons from government payroll, recovering wrongful payments and unearned salaries, prosecuting persons suspected to be culpable for any offenses, and the institution and implementation of internal controls in respect of payroll processing and payment of salaries. We further recall, as you do remember, that to facilitate the rollout of the investigation and assessment throughout the country, a pilot exercise was carried out in the northern region, covering educational institutions under Ghana Education Service and the Tamale Teaching Hospital, by a joint team comprising investigators, tracers, and assessors from the OSP and selected staff of the Payroll Processing Directorate of the Controller and Accountant General's Department between December 2023 and April 2024. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm glad to announce to you that after thorough investigation, the OSP is now ready to commence the prosecution of persons suspected to have engaged in such conduct. So earlier today, I directed the Director of Prosecutions at the OSP to file criminal charges at the High Court in Tamale against the following 6 persons. 1. Yakubu Tahidu, a former teacher at Balogu MA Junior High School, Yendi, in the northern region. 2. Abdullahi Abubakari Sadiq, an integrated personnel payroll database coordinator of the Ghana Education Service in Yendi, northern region. 3. Sami Suk, a schools improvement support officer for the Yendi North Circuit, northern region. Mohammed Yusuf J., one-time headmaster of the Balogu MA Junior High School, Yendi, northern region. Stafford Kolete Azude Barris, an assistant chief accounts technician at the Controller and Accountant General's Department, Accra, the Greater Accra region. And Osman Isahaku, a one-time headmaster of Balogu MA Junior High School, Yendi, northern region. The main charges are corruption of a public officer and corruption by a public officer involving the manipulation and siphoning of funds designed as fictitious salaries from the government payroll. The identified persons would soon be arraigned before the High Court in Tamale. Thank you for coming. Any questions? Yes, sir. It's always Elton. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Thank you very much, sir. So you described Kenneth as a fugitive running away from justice. You declared him wanted, meaning you've come to the conclusion and he has questions to answer regarding the investigations that have been happening. You referenced the National Cathedral, the SML, and others. Are you able to provide us some details as to his exact role in these matters that come to the conclusion that he has questions to answer? And secondly, declaring him wanted. The claim here is that he is on an indefinite medical leave. And I'm wondering, is there no room to allow him access to speak rather than take this route to declare him wanted?
Let me answer. Let me answer. We'll carry the media along when we are ready to disclose the nature of his involvement in these investigations. When we started, it was 4, but by last week, it had become 5. So we're still opening it up. The more we go into it, the more we see things. So when we are ready to start, you know, we either come here to address you, or we put it by way of publication on our website or directly to the media. Yes, indefinite medical review. We are not without the milk of human kindness to appreciate and reckon a person's medical condition. But when you conduct yourself in a certain way to suggest that all you are doing is just a ruse and that you have no intention of returning to the jurisdiction, that is the conclusion we have come to. You see, as I said, the first communication to us was clear, that he was away indefinitely from the jurisdiction on medical grounds. Then we pushed further. You cannot tell us that you've gone out of the jurisdiction on medical grounds on your say-so. If you're a serious law enforcement agency, would you just take a person's declaration that, oh, I am so much an invalid that I'm unable to come? You would demand, Elton, you would demand to know more, right? And that is exactly what we did. So we pushed. The response that came was unconvincing. That he may, at some future time, undergo possible surgical procedure. And I said something which is very crucial. There's intelligence available to us, which we do not want to reveal now because it may compromise the investigation. That tells us that, and that's what I stated, that it is just a ruse, that he can travel to the jurisdiction. It's not as if he comes to the jurisdiction, we'll promptly lock him up and throw the key away. It is a process we go through. This is a democratic institution with very well prescribed constitutional and statutory legal processes. So what do you fear coming in to answer questions? You can reschedule your appointments in such a way that you can come in and go. We will not say you should stay and die at all costs. What kind of persons will we be? And so that is not the issue. The issue is your expressed intention that you've gone away definitely. What do you have to show for it? We get a purported medical letter, a very sketchy one, which tells us that you have scheduled appointments which you need to attend and that you are being reviewed, and there are some future dates you would maybe undergo some surgical procedure. For us, this is unconvincing. And as I stated in my briefing, the letter doesn't say you are so much of an invalid that you can't complain and travel to the jurisdiction. We all fall sick at some point, and we all go seek medical attention wherever. But if you are not at the point of death, if you are not bedridden, if you are not on a stretcher, this is a ruse, and we are unconvinced. As far as we are concerned, he just doesn't want to return to the jurisdiction voluntarily, and we have given him the chance so to do voluntarily, failing which we will pull him to Ghana. Yes, sir. I mean, your pen doesn't write. Go on.
Yes, so Ken Forrester come back willingly or be pulled back forcefully. How exactly is that going done? And we say then that now you declared him wanted.
No, I didn't. You don't say. Can we now say? I just declared him a wanted person and a fugitive from justice. So don't put ifs and buts on it.
Great.
We have declared him a fugitive from justice. He's wanted by the OSP.
What are the processes that you trigger? For instance, are you bringing in the Interpol? And if you are, how guaranteed are you that they will cooperate? We've been there before. We know people have
you know very well that I don't disclose strategy until I'm ready to do so. See, but a little bit of I don't want to use the word education. I'm a lecturer at heart, so let me put it this way. See, that Interpol red notice, this is general, not in relation to the case at hand. Interpol red notice is not an arrest warrant, and it is not an extradition request. So there are so many things that go into it. So just because you have issued an Interpol red notice doesn't mean automatically Interpol will help you to pull the person here. So this is just by way of education. Yeah, right.
My name is Hansen Adiman. I work with CTFM Channel 1 TV. Now, considering the timelines for the engagement with Mr. Kenokwe, it appears he left the jurisdiction before you gave him notice that you wanted to engage him. And if that is so, he had taken a decision already to go out of the country indefinitely. Doesn't that defeat your understanding that he's seeking to run away, let's say, from being interrogated?
Samuel, I'm overriding you. I'll just answer as we go. It makes the memory fresher.
And then the second question is on the read.
It's on the
read. The read, the lawyers wrote to you. They sought to inquire from you if the read was from your outfit. You say it is not from your outfit, but you've gone ahead to say that you think that it's staged or done to in an inquisitor action done to paint you black. But have you in any way compared with other investigative bodies before coming into your conclusion that it is staged? And the final one is there have been conversations on oral, and one of the things your office have been investigating has to do with the sale of stool lands and state lands. And the conversations we've heard from members of oral has to do with the purchase of state lands by persons who are politically exposed. Now, my concern is that it may happen in a way where you may be investigating the same thing, where the oral team, Trigger Attorney General, is also investigating the same. So, to what extent have you been involved with this whole oral thing?
right. Let me answer. As I said, it makes the memory fresher. Say, Johan has me up perpetually. Next one is to. I see he's giving the microphone to you already. So, right, your first question. Your intention to leave the jurisdiction indefinitely does not stop us from requiring your presence. You are a citizen of Ghana. You were a public officer. You were a finance minister for a very long time. And if you have decided to go away indefinitely, that is your personal decision. But when a law enforcement agency wants you physically in, you have to show up. You do not have a choice about it. You get me? So your travel arrangements, your travel plans, your travel habits have nothing to do with a law enforcement agency. But at the point where the law enforcement agency informs you that we need you physically, we need to see you for you to answer certain questions, you don't direct us to your lawyers and say, oh, whatever information that you want, your lawyers can provide for you. We are not investigating your lawyers. Your lawyers can't, and your lawyers were not the finance ministers. You were the finance minister, and it is your role as finance minister and the things that came about in respect of this investigation in your duty as finance minister. That is why we want to see you. Throwing us to your lawyers doesn't answer it. So if you have formed an intention to leave the jurisdiction before we contacted you, well, breaking news, a law enforcement agency wants you. Do you have a choice about it? You don't. Why is it that if the FBI declares someone wanted, we all go agog and it suits our purposes, for instance, in the US? Or is it because we watch so many movies and we've come to accept it? But when the OSP declares someone wanted, then it becomes something that perhaps we should push against. As I said, we sitting here have done all our checks, and everything shows to us that the man just doesn't want to show up. And that was communicated in the first letter. It was clear in there that he's gone indefinitely. It was when we pushed that you cannot just tell us that. Before things started cascading, then we started seeing the real intention. But your first intention of telling us that you are away indefinitely was what you intended to stick to. The raid. I do not intend to go into detail here in respect of our intelligence as to what we do know. But the way it was carried out, the way the media reportage went, the way immediately the OSP was linked to it, the way all of a sudden it is the OSP having some vendetta against him, that is why. Did the media even know that we had asked him to come? No. So how did it just then get into the media all of a sudden that the OSP has some vendetta against Mr. Ofori-Atta, and that is why the OSP raided his house, when we did not carry out the raid? Quickly, and this is coming a day after the lawyers had informed us and given us some purported medical letter. And our checks quickly and our intelligence shows us that. I said, it's one of two things. It is staged, or it is an imposter action. To situate it, I say, baby, Nyankupon, Abonampesi, Honabun, Sam Tutunikobi. Staged or an imposter action, and it's not coming from us. Why are we then being blackened for it? There's something untoward going on. And for us, we believe that it is time. I will declare him a fugitive from justice. And this is now. Oral. Yes, we started our investigation of at the Lands Commission, the sale of stool lands, state lands, and vested assets a while back. It is huge because we gave ourselves a timeline of the commencement of the investigation would be from 7 January 1993 to date. So it is a huge endeavor. Indeed, if we say we're going to go as we want to go, it might even take 5-6 years to come to a full conclusion of the nature of the things and what actually has gone on. And you ask whether we were involved in the oral preparation. The Attorney General himself wasn't involved, but the report has been handed over to him. So I strongly do believe that the Attorney General and the OSP will go into some of the processes and some of the cases so as we won't do an overlap of the cases that we are investigating, for sure. And Attorney General, well, if you know the relationship well, he was my lecturer at Legon. And then we formed a firm together some time ago. And then when he became a Deputy Attorney General some time back, I departed to form my own firm with another person. So there is that rapport, and we communicate a lot. So we will confer on that. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Abdul. I write for the News Center newspaper.
The News?
News Center.
Right.
My first question is, in your first statement about the raid in the house, you were categorical that intelligence available to you indicate that it was staged. You didn't say it was suspicion. You said intelligence.
Sorry, I didn't say it was what?
You didn't say suspect.
I didn't say it, no.
You said intelligence.
Yes, and in my response to him, I didn't say it was suspected. I insisted. I said it was, no, I said it was staged, or at best, an imposter action. Those are my words.
Yeah, so I just want to
right.
on the intelligence. So, I'm a journalist.
You want me to reveal it to you?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm a journalist. To tell the intelligence available to you shows that you know that this thing on record. Then I assume that you know those behind it, those who planned it and those who executed it. Is that the understanding? That
you still want me to reveal my intelligence to you?
No, I'm not going to mention it.
Right.
I used to say intelligence available to you.
Right.
Categorically indicates that the thing was staged. That was what you said first. So I'm saying that if I'm a journalist and you tell me that, then the assumption is that it means you know those who planned it.
We have a fair idea.
You have information.
We have a fair idea, yes. And I situate, when he asked me, I situated it in a certain context.
No,
I said,
this person's question. I'm saying the first statement.
no, Ahmad, calm down. Say, let's have a conversation. Yeah. Let's not talk over each other. I'm saying, because your question relates to what he asked, and that is why I'm linking it to it. I said, in the context in which I situated it, it became very clear to us. The way the OSP was linked to it, the OSP was attached to it in a very negative sense, when the media did not even know that we were after Mr. Kenofurata? Did any one of you here know that we were after Mr. Kenofurata? You didn't know. How did it then turn out yesterday?
We knew because there was a newspaper publication.
The newspaper public. Calm down. You didn't know. The newspaper public. Wait, hold on.
Please. You ask a question, I'm answering.
Hold on. I'm saying you didn't know.
That.
Calm down. I said, let's have a conversation. If you talk over me, I won't answer you again. Listen, I'm saying you didn't know. What you knew was our half-yearly report, which we put in the Daily Graphic and on our website, that we were investigating Mr. Oforiatta for National Cathedral Project. That is all that you know. What you don't know is all that I've enumerated. And what you don't know is the exchange of correspondence between the lawyers of Mr. Oforiatta and us. And what you don't know is the purported medical letter that was transmitted to us by Mr. Oforiatta's lawyers. And what you don't know is our insistence and warning Mr. Oforiatta that if you don't show up on a certain day, we will come after you. You didn't know all that. So when I say you don't know, just admit that you didn't know. What you know is what we put in the paper. Proceed. If you calm down, it will make things clearer. Right.
Your first statement before this question, you answered my question as though it's related to this man. I'm saying no.
You fail to recognize that it is related to his question.
So,
but proceed.
If you say intelligence available, it meant that you have idea of who did it. Because I'm saying this because if the man says something that's happening.
Yes, I'm answering you. We have a fair idea of who did it.
Okay. That's Second,
he still has the microphone.
The first letter.
Right.
You admitted that at the time you issued that you invited him, you were not aware that he has traveled. And that it was
you see, pick my words carefully. I never said that. I said he left the jurisdiction on or about. Yes. Listen. He left the. You see, I see a penchant of you in putting words in people's mouths. But listen, he left. What I stated was that he left the jurisdiction on or about 2 January 2025. That's what I stated. I didn't say that we didn't know. But the fact that you are out of the jurisdiction doesn't prevent us from communicating with you, is it? Especially in this modern era of all gadgetry. So we knew that he was out of the jurisdiction. But we know where he lives. That there are people there. Yeah.
I just want to go on the first letter. When you sent the letter, his lawyers responded that he's out of the jurisdiction and that for the communication to them is that he's out of the jurisdiction indefinitely.
On medical grounds.
My question is, if I leave the country, you are aware that I've left the country, and then later you invite me, and my lawyers write to you that, oh, I'm out of the country indefinitely on medical grounds. I don't think that first letter will be basis to say I'm trying to run away from that. It will be
Once again, if the first letter was the reason why we just organized a briefing, we would have done it a long time ago. But we didn't just base our actions on the first letter. We waited and we pushed. We asked for more. So if you say the first letter could not have been the basis, that wasn't the basis. But as I'm saying, subsequent events then informed us, instructed us that, oh, the first intention you communicated to us in your first letter is really what you want to do. And that the things you are bringing now, rules, afterthought.
So the subsequent is what telling that the
yes,
action was.
The subsequent actions then took us back to the first letter for us to come to the conclusion that all the
investigation about him you talked about, they involve, I think about 3 of them involve private sector institutions who deal with certain contracts.
But linked to public agencies.
Yes. So my question is, you yourself have just noted that with technology, it's easy to get people wherever they are in the world. If there are other people involved in the investigations and they are here and you are interrogating them, if technology, is it possible? It's not possible that whatever information you got from Kenofurata, you can get it from him without him physically being present in Ghana. Thank you.
See, As for possibilities, we cannot determine how far they go. What we deal with is probabilities. It is very possible for me to develop wings right now and fly out of this room like a bird. But is it in the least probable? No. And that is why in the law, we don't deal with possibilities. We are dealing with probabilities. Now, when a law enforcement agency tells you that your physical appearance, a former president of the United States was wanted by a city, he had to leave wherever he was to attend to that call in that city and be charged. The OSP wants you physically for you to answer some questions. You don't know our processes by which we go through by charging a person, by arresting a person, and all that. You wouldn't know that, would you say? So when we say that your personal attendance is required, it means that we do not want to do a teleconferencing or a Zoom conferencing. So if your response to us that you are bedridden, we will seek to find whether indeed you are bedridden and you can't travel. You get me? We will not just take your word for it, and that is why I stated in the brief that we won't, on your say-so, we won't admit what you are saying, that you are so ill that you can't come to the jurisdiction. And so, show us more. We didn't just move. We were fair, and we kept asking. It was at some point yesterday that we decided that he has to be declared a fugitive from justice. And we have done so. Yes, sir. Well, he made it a debate. That's why it came like that. Mm. Right. For the right.
At what time would you apply your second option to secure Mr. Korea?
Someone was saying, leave it to us. Like I told the other gentleman, we don't like disclosing strategy like that. Sometimes it compromises investigation.
Who are the lawyers for
I can come. Let's leave the lawyers out. You see, they are my colleagues at the bar. They are not under investigation. They are not the people the OSP want. You get me? They are doing their job as lawyers. And, you know, in law, every lawyer will tell you, it is what your client tells you. That is what you transmit. So all that they are doing, they are transmitting the information their client gave to them. So, pardon me, let's leave the lawyers and the identity out of it. Is that another hand? Sorry?
You have a personal issue with
God forbid. I don't have any issues with anybody. I don't hold grudges. You know, it also came up when we invited Professor Frimpong in here. Same thing. The story was that I was doing someone bidding, fighting someone's battle for him, people who have issues against Professor Frimpong, and that's why we brought him here. Look at the litany of cases I mentioned, and there are more which we will go into. Personal issues with anyone. I did not assume this office or swear an oath to defend the Constitution and the laws of this country, to go on a personal vendetta or personal chases because I don't like you or you've crossed my path or anything. Otherwise, I'm sure there will be more than 1,000 people reporting to the OSP every day. Every day, someone crosses you. But that is not the reason why I'm the special prosecutor, and I'm never going to do that. Personal vendetta, God forbid.
Right.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't get any. Right.
At what point that the cases you're looking at in relation to Ken Ofori-Atta expand to 4? You mentioned that it possibly could rise to 5.
No. It's when we started. Sorry, when we started, it was 4, but by last week it had expanded to 5.
Was there a petition?
No.
From someone?
No.
What is informing the expansion of these cases against?
Our investigation. As we investigate the others, it branches out. The arteries lead to one another, and then it took us to the GRA tax refund account. Right. So, and as I was saying, Mawina, right? From there, it may branch to other places. We do not know, but we do not close it up. You get it? So far as the investigation is leading you somewhere, you look at it. So the letter that went to him, asking him to report, had 4, not 5.
If someone says for fishing, will the person be right?
For what?
Fishing, because you say you started with 4, it's leading into others, and it could lead into a lot more.
You see, the day of planning is always different from the day of battle. You know that. You plan that today you are going to do this, and then you get to the battlefield that your opponent has some other strategy which you have to rework yourself, especially in football. Saying you start one investigation, and then it leads to the other. Let me give you a good example. We started the La Bianca investigation. Where did it lead us to? Auctions. Meanwhile, that wasn't why we started that case. It was in respect of a customs advance ruling. 2 customs advance ruling just for one company, just 2 for one company. Then, as we were delving in and going into it, realized that no, it was showing some other form of conduct in respect of the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. And that is how we ended up at auction sales of vehicles and other goods. And we know what the outcome of that was. So, for a good investigator, director of investigation here will tell you, always keep an open mind. If you keep a closed mind that this is only what you are doing, you may miss other things because things relate to each other. They are always not in a vacuum like that. Right? A payment, let's say, to one entity may be coming from a certain source. So when you trace that source, you may realize that there are so many things going on in the source where that payment came from that will lead you to other cases. Why are there so many payments going from that particular source? That is not even what you started to investigate, but then you go and see it. That's the beauty of the game. Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. You don't have the microphone and you he has the floor. Right. Sorry? Reuters.
Are you able to tell how you started? Was it through a petition or whistleblower or what? And then 2, based on the status of
How we started what? Right.
Somebody take you off. Were you petitioning? Which of the cases kind of did you start with? And then based on the status, are you able to put a value to it out of the 4 or the 5 at the moment? Are you able to say you are going after him because of this amount of money reportedly involved?
If you would recall, one of the cases has been, say from Reuters, if you recall, one of the cases has been on a half-yearly report for a while now. Remember, the one ECG. It's been there for a while now. We started, when did we start that? 3 years ago? 2022. So we started the ECG investigation in 2022. You see, but that wasn't based on a tip-off or anything. It was just in respect of a dissolution of a contract, which then brought about some unpleasant consequences, which then took us to go look at it. So from 2022, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Energy had been on our radar from 2022, and we started. So when we started from the ECG, then at some point, the other cases came in, SML. Then after that, the ambulances. Then after that, National Cathedral, right here beside us. Then last week, GRA refund, tax refund account. You get me? Yeah, so we started these investigations 3 years ago. Right. Yes, sir. Oh, the value. Sir, I cannot place a value on it for you right now.
My name is Mason. I write for
The what? Chronicle. So you are the spear of the nation.
I want to take you to the medical reports.
All right.
You described it as reported medical reports. And you also
I didn't describe it as a report. I said purported medical letter.
reported medical letter.
It is not a report in our record. It is a letter.
Of interest
It is a generic letter to whom it may concern. Generic letter. Yes.
Of interest to me is the qualification reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So you work around it.
Right.
And when you spoke about the ring in his house, you said your intelligence
Mm-hmm.
indicates that it was either an imposter action or
It was staged or at best an imposter action. Yeah.
So my understanding is that you did some background checks to arrive at that conclusion. I want to find out whether you've done same checks, possibly from a medical or the hospital that the purported letter is coming from, to be able to know that it was purported. Or I don't know. I want to be sure whether you've done
but that's good journalism. You know, I keep referring to the fact that there is some bit of intelligence available to us, which we do not. Which we do not want to reveal now, for fear that it may compromise the investigation. It is a reason why we keep saying it is a purported medical letter. We never qualified it as a report. It is a medical letter stating exactly what I said in my briefing. That was all there was to it. But I was at pains to point out that that purported medical letter never stated that he was an invalid, to the point where he is unable to travel to the jurisdiction. For us, it's very crucial. And we also stated in the briefing that it wasn't demonstrated so. You get it? Yeah. We can all say that I'm not well, I can't come to work today, or it's raining at my area, so I'm unable to come to work. We can all say that. Sorry? Follow up. Sorry, he says he has a follow up. Let's follow him up and then.
You see, for fear of people thinking that you are just persecuting somebody, or on a fishing expedition, I believe use that. I know that when doctors are writing such letters, there is a medical person with a signature on those things. Yes, you said you have some intelligence. I want to confirm that you've done your checks abroad without necessarily stating the specific hospital or the specific medical person who is.
I get you. First on persecution. If without any precursors, I just called you, invited you here this morning without anything, we just declared him a wanted person, then you could say that is persecution. But we've been through processes. And that is why I said earlier that do not think that we do not have the milk of human kindness. We are also persons. We can fall ill. Who amongst us has not fallen ill before? But place it in context and the exchange of correspondence and what was going on. You would come to a certain conclusion that we came. And I said, no serious law enforcement agency would accept that because of this, you are unable to show up. No serious law enforcement agency. Once again, let me go to the US. If the FBI said that, you applaud. OSP is saying it, so maybe there's persecution. We're also up to our task and we're doing it. If you tell any law enforcement agency in the world that kind of letter that came to us, no serious law enforcement agency would accept that because of that, you are so sickly and invalid that you can't show up. It will come after you. That's why we are going after him. There is a contest. And then again, what was your second?
Whether there is a specific hospital and a medical person.
Well, see, I never said we doubt the authenticity of the authorship of the letter. Once again, get my words carefully. I'm saying it's a purported medical letter. I never casted doubt on where it's coming from. I never casted doubt on the person who signed it. I never casted out on the letterhead on which it appeared. What I did say is that for us, it is a ruse intended for him never to show up willingly. Yeah. And if you say we've done our checks, yes, we've done our checks. And that bit of information, I said, I won't reveal to you now. We fear it may compromise the investigation. Right. So, forgive me and pardon me for that. If we think we should reveal it at some future point, we would. Okay. Yes, sir. Oh, he has a microphone.
All right. My name is Joe Nabuda. I work with Domingo Media Group, Bullet TV.
Bullet TV.
Yes, please.
brutal.
No, not in that way.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, so there are concerns out there about the timing of some of these cases and the invitations and all of that. You know, some of these issues have been with you when Nkrumah was the finance minister. When did you realize that he was needed for this investigation? And why did you have to wait for there to be a change of government? That's the question many Ghanaians are asking out there. How do you respond to that question?
You know, if it was just a one-off case, then maybe you may have a point. And, mind you, if Mr. Oforiatta had showed up at the OSP, you would not have known it. You get it? The reason why we are having this briefing is because he failed to show up. And for us, it is a ruse for him not to come to the jurisdiction willingly. But you see, as I said, it is not a one-off matter. As the Director of Investigation stated, we started ECG in 2022. It's an ongoing process. These cases, you hasten with patience. Otherwise, you will miss a lot. Mind you, it's a criminal investigation. Mind you, the outcome of a criminal process is that someone may lose their liberty. You have to be painstaking. And I keep telling my directors, if you bring a case to me and it is 70-30, I won't move. If it is 50-50, don't even bring it to me. I only start listening to you when it is 90-10. That is 90, that there is the real likelihood and probability that some criminality has ensued. But from there, we then go into SML. The SML investigation, we had to pause it, waiting for KPMG. Remember, there was a presidential directive to KPMG. We paused it for several months, waiting for it to do, because, you know, you do not want to do overlapping and spending very limited resources when you do not have to. So when the KPMG report was birthed, then we went back to it, looking at it again. And all of a sudden, the ambulance matter came up. It wasn't until late November 2024 that Shraj issued its report on the National Cathedral project. Was it 28th November? Just a few months ago, that Shraj issued that report. Shraj referred the matter to us and said that if it was necessary, we should go to it. And we stated that, yeah, it was necessary. So from the ending of November 2024, we went into it. By January, it became obvious that we should pull him to the OSP. You get it? So it is a gradual process. So it is luckless coincidence that his government is no longer in power. If his government was still in power now, we would still have gone after him. We have a history of that. No, you asked yours, right? He hasn't had. Sorry? You haven't? Oh, why? Mr. Aragon, you don't like him? Okay, he Kentema will have the last word. Emmanuel. Oh, right.
My question has to do with the aftermath of the investigation. There has been concern that you do all these investigations, but you are really yet to secure any court conviction. The last time we were here, you had a press briefing, we had some issues with that. So all these things that you do, what is the end game? You don't secure any conviction since you came to office. What do you say to critics out there that you start these investigations, it hasn't really ended?
Hey, we'll try and pitch as well. Good concern. I said not too long ago that these cases take time. It is like the study of geology, time and pressure, but with patience. Okay. We do two forms of investigation. One, investigation to prevent corruption. Those do not necessarily end up in prosecution. You are doing the investigation so as to plug loopholes, and a lot of the investigations we announce are in the nature of that. Look at when we started the government payroll administration investigation. That was in 23, right? Late 23. Beginning 2025, we are now ready with our first suspects. You get it? Now you say we have not secured any conviction. Well, I wish we would have secured some, but it is not. It is not just an easy statement like that. You recall, there was one case. I mean, when was it? I think it was 28th. There was supposed to be a judgment. We concluded the case. It was supposed to be in Kumasi, only for us to go and to be told the judge had been transferred. What were we supposed to do? We are not the judges. We cannot read the judgment. What the OSP has to do, we have done. As video evidence of the person demanding back his bribe money after a public election went all right twice for him, and all that. We are in Tamale on the Northern Development Agency case. We closed our case. There was a submission of no case to answer, which went in our favor. The accused persons have opened their defense. We're on it. There's this perpetual one in Accra, respect of the former CEO of the Public Procurement Authority. We are alive to our duties. As I'm saying, these things take time. It takes time. And patience. The results will be seen. And in terms of investigating to prevent corruption, when you hear the name of OSP on the street, doesn't it shake you a bit? It does. Ally. It does. Say the OSP is coming around. It does shake you a bit. That's investigation to prevent corruption. So it is, all I'm saying is, Ghanaians, with all humility, not all cases will end up in court. Indeed, most of the cases will not end up in court. The prevention of corruption aspect is even more crucial than getting one person to someone. But those that need to be prosecuted, we will not shield anyone. We will take them to court as soon as they are ready. And you can see we are rolling cases out. And at least on one occasion, we are done, waiting for the judgment to be read since November. So we are on course, and the fight against corruption is taking shape. Kintema will anchor us, then we'll be out of here.
My name is
Malik. Yeah.
Is the ultimate goal of the OSP to get conviction cases that is it your ultimate goal to get persons take to court convicted? If that is not the case, then I think the office has to give an education. Ghanaians must be sensitive that look, the office is not established to take persons to court and to get them convicted. Because that's the understanding out there, that you take cases to court and you don't get conviction. Then two, I have read a few headlines on Facebook. If Mr. Kenoforiata at any point requested to seek medical attention out of the country, he would seek any request.
From the OSP?
Yes.
No, but why would he? At the time when we hadn't requested his appearance, he wouldn't know that we wanted him to show up. So humanly, he would not have. And indeed, that would have sounded, let me use a word that's been going around again currency a bit today, that would have sounded fishy. You've not requested for the person's appearance, and he's telling you that he's going out of the jurisdiction of medical grounds. It means that he's preempting your strike, right? that would seem a bit out of the ordinary circumstances of mankind. And your first concern is what Mr. Ebo Hodgson also touched on. Yeah. We are doubling down on our efforts. And sometimes we also require you to talk for us a bit. We also need the resources to move. We've been talking about it all this while. I see the criticism a lot. That's fine. It's good to Nyama people. But also raise your voice up and say that you also need the resources to move. You're talking about education. It takes some resources to move. But yes, we are on our alive to our duties. And as I explained not too long ago, what is our ultimate aim? Ultimate aim is not to see Kwaku Mensah in jail or Kwabena Mpuma locked up. Our ultimate aim is that, as far as my tenure is concerned, when it ends and I leave, the conversation on corruption would have shifted. Like a paradigm would have shifted. So that it will not just be business as usual. For people to know that when they engage in these acts, there's a price to pay, and a very hefty price to pay. For us here at the OSP, that message and that prevention drive is much more important than getting one person to jail. If you get one person to jail successfully, that's fine. There are a million Kwaku Mensahs who are still engaged in the conduct which you have not been able to get to jail. But they are all freely engaging in such conduct, and the society is the worse for it. That is not so helpful a utilitarian model than to shift the conversation of corruption for us to stamp it down, suppress and repress it, and forge ourselves a better society. That is our ultimate aim, at least as far as I remain the special prosecutor. Thank you very much for coming. It's always a joy to see you and to brief and review and take questions from you. Have a pleasant day.